And we're here for the latest episode of OMG JK. I'm Jason Kincaid.
And I'm MG Siegler. The first thing we're going to talk about this week is a pretty big thing, the Facebook phone. So we broke this story, and it was kind of a funny situation because almost immediately, a few hours afterwards, we broke it really late at night, a few hours afterwards, Facebook came back and started issuing a press release saying that
it does not exist.
That it does not exist. Yeah, totally inaccurate.
They are not building a Facebook phone. Only for more reports to come out a few hours later saying, oh, it does exist, which sort of made everyone involved look, or let's say, made Facebook look kind of stupid, honestly.
Yes.
They made us look stupid for like an hour, and then we proved we were vindicated.
Right. That said, there is a lot going on here. I mean, it is confusing on both sides, I think. It seems like they're a little bit confused about what's going on. We're a little bit confused.
Exactly. And to clear the air, we got the chance to go down and actually talk to Mark Zuckerberg for a pretty extended interview talking about Facebook's mobile strategy. And in general, they didn't give too many direct answers as far as what Facebook was actually doing here.
Right.
But the general, they kept talking about how they're trying to have like a very horizontal strategy, not trying to beat the iPhone, not trying to beat Android.
Very PR friendly.
But at the same time, they're probably making a custom version of Android.
Right.
Which is what
probably maybe. And there was another report last night, I think in Bloomberg or whatever, that they're working with that INQ. I don't know if it's pronounced INC or just INQ or whatever it is. But so they're working with them to do maybe a branded phone. They're still not sure about the actual branding of it, but this would be another an Android phone.
And I think the most interesting part of this is not necessarily like who's going to release a device, because it sounds like it's still some way off, but more what Facebook's long-term vision is for mobile.
Right.
And that's what Mark Zuckerberg talked about. He said that Facebook has this vision of you log onto your phone once and all of your apps are immediately social. It's sort of like instant personalization for your entire phone. He said you can't do that for the browser unless you're Google or Microsoft and you have your own browser.
Right.
But Facebook has this, it would like to do that for them.
So, and they're smart. That's a good idea, and it sounds great to users, I think. But the other companies can't go along with that. They're not going to want to go along with that. Obviously, Google's trying to build its own social thing now. They're going to roll it out in the next few months. Apple's starting to dip their toes into that, the social element of it. And, there was all that talk that they were talking to Facebook before Ping launched, and then, so that didn't end up happening. So there's got to be some animosity there between the two.
Definitely. But as Facebook would like to make clear, it is not competing with any of them.
Yeah, until
it's a
they
very
are.
horizontal strategy.
Right.
Yeah, that was amusing. So I think the second thing we wanted to talk about was another development involving the iPhone, which was that Google Voice, third-party Google Voice applications, after over a year-long hiatus, were finally accepted back into the App Store.
Right.
So, what's your interpretation?
So this is a direct reaction to the App Store changes that came about a couple weeks ago where, they more clearly outlined what they would and would not allow in the App Store. And so now all of a sudden we're seeing this wave of applications that previously weren't being allowed back in, and one of them is Google Voice stuff. So, I got the GV Mobile Plus. I think that's the one most people are getting. There's another one, though, too.
There's a GV Connect.
GV Connect.
Right.
Okay, and so, they used to cost like a couple bucks or $3 in the App Store. There's still no official Google app, though.
Right, and it's also worth noting that these third-party applications, and even if there were an official Google app, they wouldn't be able to provide the same level of integration as the Android application.
Right, because they don't tie right into your address book, and they don't take over your phone.
Right.
Which was kind of the thing that Apple said they had a problem with to begin with, right?
Apple just came up with a reason to block it. I don't think they really had an issue with that, because then they started approving other applications that did something very similar. Line 2 did something as far as reproducing a dialing interface and
and
recent
Skype
calls.
has that now.
Yeah, so that reason just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, all right, but so do you think these apps are any good? Have you been using? You don't have.
So
that,
I'm not an active
you're
iPhone user.
Right?
I played around with them on my iPad, which wasn't really a very effective way to do anything.
A huge button you have to slam your hand down on.
I think if you're a Google Voice user and you're on an iPhone, this is great news.
Yeah.
If you're a hardcore Google Voice user and you have to choose a platform and you don't really care either way, Android is probably still the way to go, but I think iPhone users are pleased.
So I've still been using it. I mainly use Google. I have Google Voice account and I love it. It's great. I use everything. I just forward certain calls to my iPhone number, or you can forward it to multiple numbers. So that's how I use it. So I was never that gung-ho about the app. I loved how it integrated with Android. When you got the Android phone, you could just click a few buttons and automatically set it up. But it wasn't that big of a deal to me to have the number itself.
Right, and I think that's a big win really for Google, that
Right, they can
even
do
if
it without, right.
Apple isn't going to integrate this anytime soon, but
Right.
it's still a tempting application for people to
So
use.
do you know if the Google Voice, these two apps, these two third-party apps, do they work with like the iPod Touch so you can basically make it a VoIP phone?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because the way Google Voice works is it actually uses your voice minutes.
Right.
It's not a pure VoIP connection that you're creating.
Except for that doesn't the desktop app that we previewed that is VoIP, right? I think.
I think so. I think it has to. I don't
Right.
really know what else
Right. How would
using.
they tie it to that anymore?
But yeah, as far as using the iPod Touch for a Google Voice app, I don't think they're there. That said, the Gizmo 5
Right.
technology, I think that could be used for a VoIP application at some point.
That would be pretty
That's what
killer.
they're using to power Gmail, is just, for the Gmail Google Voice integration. But
That would be great.
We'll
like right before the Nexus 1 came out, everyone was still calling it again the Google phone. We were talking about, well, maybe what if they don't use a carrier? What if they kind of bypass them? It's like if they get something like that working, that could be really killer.
Of course, Google is sort of in bed with the carriers at this point,
Right.
as you like to point out repeatedly. I mean, it's definitely a valid point.
Yeah.
They're
as
not
long as Google gets its backbone back.
They're not necessarily being as innovative as they could be.
Yeah.
Yet. Fingers crossed they will.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of a funny one. There was a Yahoo event, a Yahoo Search event last week. You went to it.
I went to this event, so I hadn't actually been down to Yahoo's campus in a long time, and this was an event that was sort of charting out Yahoo's roadmap for the foreseeable future, because I don't think anyone really knows what Yahoo is up to these days. Right. And having been to that event, as soon as I left the presentation, I still didn't really understand what they were up to.
Nor did anyone reading the coverage, nor anyone.
I mean, they launched, or they previewed a new Yahoo Mail,
right.
a new Yahoo Messenger, and there were some other UI tweaks for their search, as far as, you'll search for some tickets for like a Lady Gaga concert and be able to buy it directly from the top of the search window.
Right.
That's cool.
This is the same stuff they keep doing over and over again. I mean, before you went to this one, I had been to the previous 3 of these events, and they're always like, they show off something new, a little new feature, kind of cool, but is it really that they need to get momentum back. They're not doing anything to do that.
And the worst part of the presentation is everything they talked about was very buzzword heavy, and they also spent a significant amount of time talking about Yahoo's infrastructure, which went right over my head. I mean, there may have been a few people in the audience who understood what they were talking about or cared, but for me, I was like, I can't wait to see what cool stuff Yahoo's been working on. It was just like,
Google's actually very good at that. During their events, they're obviously a very technical company, and they have all that knowledge and everything, but they do a good job of keeping it pretty simple for common people to understand what's going on, and they just focus on consumer-facing features. Really, they're really good at that.
That said, there was one thing. I talked to Blake Irving, who's their VP of product, I believe, for Yahoo, and he did try to give a more concrete example of what they're trying to do, and it sounds like they're trying to make a social experience that's not as broad as Facebook is, where you have sort of groups of friends, where if you're sharing information about your upcoming golf trip with a group of friends, then the next time you visit a golf site that has this Yahoo widget integrated, it may say, hey, do you want to share this with your group of golfing friends? And it'll only be with 4, which sounded fairly compelling when he told me about it. On the other hand, it sounded really far off, because I couldn't get any kind of concrete data out of him at all.
Yeah, and if Yahoo just keeps losing momentum like this, can they afford to wait that long?
Yeah, definitely a valid point. So for our last topic, and one of the more exciting ones, it's new Twitter, which I think we had some understanding.
I like how new Twitter, it makes it sound like new Coke or
something. Exactly. It's always hashtag new Twitter.
Hashtag new Twitter.
And I know some of these features weren't entirely unexpected, like inline media viewing.
Right.
But the totally revamped experience. I mean, what's your impression of it so far?
I think it's great. It takes a little bit of getting used to at first, because things really are quite a bit different. They have this new 2-pane view, which does look a lot like the iPad version, if you've been using that at all. It's a little bit different. It's not as interactive or anything like that, but it's a really good way now to browse various types of content. You can see pictures right in that right side pane. You can see videos right in that right side pane. It's really a great way to be on Twitter and not have to leave and jump to all these other links and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that, and maybe they've already talked about this, if they open up some sort of API so that third parties who weren't part of the initial launch partners.
Yes, and they're definitely already talking to other partners who are going to come in and build stuff for that right-hand thing. You know, like I wrote a post right after it launched talking about that would be a great new platform for them to kind of use. You know, like on top of
even for like a blog like TechCrunch to include like a snippet for RSS, like the
totally.
first paragraph. That'd be a great way to entice readers to click through.
Yeah, and it's not just media right now. You know, they're doing things with Kiva and they had Kickstarter as well. They have rich snippets that they include. So yeah, it would be perfect for something like that.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I mean, the whole experience to me feels much more fleshed out and more of a viable, I don't know if Facebook competitor is the right way to put it, but I could see myself spending more time just kind of casually browsing and consuming content as opposed to just checking it when I'm bored.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It has caused some controversy, though, so it's only out for a very small percentage of users still, even now. So they're slowly rolling it out over the next few weeks. So everyone's kind of tweeting about it. They really want access to it, obviously. But it is kind of, in some ways, it's annoying some users because this right-hand pane, it seems like, is obviously going to be used to promote things more. So, like, they're promoted trending topics and promoted tweets. Those can all get shoved in there. They still have plenty of other room also to do other kind of advertising if they wanted to do it.
I mean, my stance on Twitter, including ads, is like, okay, like I've expected them to do it forever. Just
I know.
The fact that they haven't done it yet doesn't make me like opposed to, oh my gosh, ruining my Twitter experience.
And they still keep on insisting that they're never going to include ads in the stream itself. It's always on these, you know, on a trending topic page, so it's at the top or whatever, not in your actual stream.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure if it works out, then they won't do it. And if what they're doing right now doesn't work, then they will start doing it.
Right.
Like, oh, we changed our mind. Anyway, so I think that does it for this episode of OMG JK. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to follow our RSS feed and subscribe to us on iTunes.